Happy Sunday, everyone. DFS NASCAR here, daily fantasy NASCAR live show for the Dixie Vodka 400. Back with me for the first time this season, Dane Chenault. How's it going today?
Yeah, it's going good. Ready to get going. We finally get kind of a normal race, I guess you would say, today
Yeah,
without road course or Daytona's craziness. So
you
ready
can
to jump in.
you can pretty much say that the real season starts today.
Right. Yeah.
Well, while we're waiting for a few people here, I'm just going to share this link in a few spots. We'll get a few more people to listen to us yammer on about some NASCAR today. Whether you're playing waiting for a few people here, I'm just going to share this link in a few spots. We'll get people. Internet's not as good as it was last week, but I'm in a hotel here again. About half the speed as last week. I don't know if it's this room or whatever, but it's still 10 times better than mine at home. I'm still waiting for this Starlink internet to show up. It just patiently wait, and it still says pending when I go online. So I might be doing a few of these trips here in the coming weeks to stay in a hotel. This is going to get expensive, but hey, I absolutely love these live shows, and it's a great getaway for the family for us too, especially during these stupid COVID times, and we're not allowed to do much. So yeah,
Right.
how have things been with you? Like I know we got some golf this weekend. We got some stuff going on there. Got some sweats going on. You got some soccer. You've been absolutely crushing it with soccer, and now it's. Did you play any Xfinity yesterday afternoon?
I did, and I did not cash. I just played one single entry. Didn't go very well. I had Gregson,
Yeah,
and
that hurt
he
me.
got close there at the end, but no. um, yeah, golf is going to be a nice sweat on both sides, Puerto Rico and down in Florida for both of us and a lot of the members too. I think over at Roto Pro. So
Yeah, things have been going awesome. I know I got some outrights going, so it's going to be a fun Sunday here with this NASCAR. I'm just getting this shared here, so we're going to start talking some stuff here in a minute. Thanks for everyone that's joining here. Post your favorite pick, your favorite DraftKings, FanDuel, outright win, Prize Picks, Thrive Fantasy, whatever you're playing. I don't think Thrive has NASCAR. Sorry about that, but whatever you're playing today, throw a shout out in the chat. Who you think's going to win? Who you think's going to be some plays? Throw your questions in there. We're going to get to them as we go over stuff here. Like I said, I'm just sharing this in a couple places. I'll get a few more people in here, and then we'll start talking about some of our favorite plays here for today. It's like Dane mentioned in the opening. For anyone just joining us now, this is the start of the real season. We're out of Daytona. We've had a super speedway. We've had a road course. We've had carnage absolutely everywhere. Cars destroyed. So now we start the mile and a half portion of the season. This is where we usually see. Early on, it's still tough to tell, but this is usually where we see throw out those first two races and we see the cars that are pretty much going to be the ones that are going to be there throughout the year, provided there's any trouble or anything like that. But that's kind of what we're looking to see here today, is who kind of jumps out. Now, this is going to be quite similar as it was last year when we had no practice. So the lineup is set by, I believe it's performance over those first two races with a little bit in that algorithm or whatever you want to call it, that formula. It has to do with last year. Excuse me. So what are your thoughts on that towards what kind of strategy we're looking at today?
yeah, it's interesting how they're setting these lineups now. It's like track history or course history that
Yeah.
we think of in golf. They're incorporating that in there. Hamlin on the pole won last year. Um, I think we see the pole sitters and some of these not end up leading a bunch of laps, but when it's Denny Hamlin, he's been good here in the past. So for strategy, as far as place differential, I'm making sure that I'm getting a good mix of dominators and place differential. Whereas the last couple weeks we've been focusing mostly on finishing position and some place differential, but this week we're going to have at least two people lead a good amount of laps, I would think. So we need those guys if they're going to finish in the top five. If they're going to lead a good portion of this race, there's enough laps that you can get some fastest laps and a lot of laps led as well. So definitely focusing on that. And I hope that I mentioned in my article, I hope that some people get tied into these dominator only lineups that we've been doing, or not dominator only, place differential only lineups that we've been doing the last couple of weeks, and forget about the dominators a little bit and they come in a little under on, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Before we jump into a little bit more strategy and specific plays, I want to talk about where you can find our content. So we're going to start over here and jump in. We'll start with rotopros.com. Me and Dane are both writers, content providers over there. You can find Dane's article over here. If you go to the homepage here, go up to articles at the top, just click on articles. You're going to find the newest articles there. You can go to NASCAR specific or PGA, NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, or general strategy. You can check that out as well. So you can get our content. The article is free. To get in and get a copy of the cheat sheet, our favorite plays, our player pool breakdowns, our track breakdowns, that sort of stuff, that is in Slack chat. So if you click on the yellow sign up button, you can jump in there. We have weekly, monthly, and yearly subscriptions for you, and a free trial on all of those. And if you use promo code RP50, you'll get 50% off once you sign up and your trial is done. You can also head over to dailyfantasysportsrankings.com. That's DFSR.com for short. I work over at DFSR. I handle all the NASCAR stuff here. You can go down to, give me a second here. You can get my cheat sheets over on the other sports tab, Chris's Sheets. And over here you can sign up. $14.95 a month gets you access to my sheets, the chat, and the basic statistics for MLB, NFL, NHL, PGA, and NBA. For $29.95 a month, you get all the things I just mentioned. Plus, you will also get the optimizer for NHL, PGA. No NASCAR yet, unfortunately, but we've got NFL and NBA in there as well, and then MLB, which is upcoming. You can also get my content over on patreon.com/Jagerbombs for $5 a month for one sport, or $10 a month for all sports. That's American dollars. I cover NHL, college basketball, League of Legends. Let's just drop this down box here and look at that. PGA, soccer, UFC, college football, done for the season. Obviously, Dane covers the college sports on that side of the sheets. NBA, we got baseball coming up. We got NASCAR and NFL. And like I said, that's $7 a month for Canadians, $13.50 a month for all sports for Canadians, $5 a month for Americans, $10 a month for all sports. Thanks a lot, everyone. You can get the content at either of those. I got chats for all of those as well. With that, let's jump in. Let's talk some picks here. I guess so. You had mentioned the strategy of looking for 2 to 3 dominators. I am 100% on board. The first thing when I look at this, looking at the sheet and I'm looking at the overall starting positions, pricing, the first thing that stands out to me is we have a little bit more place differential than we would normally have at a track like this with normal practice and qualifying. We got Kyle Busch starting 24th, Kyle Larson starting 17th, Blaney starting 14th. If you actually look at it, 4 of the top 5 drivers on DraftKings in terms of pricing start outside the top 10. I am with you though in terms of dominators. And the funny thing is, those dominators that I'm looking at personally are not in those group of most expensive drivers on DraftKings. They are Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin, and here's why. You look at the intermediate track performance going back the last 13 races. That is just looking at last year, and I believe I just included since the return. So we're leaving out Vegas last year just because they didn't have practice, or they had practice and qualifying for Vegas last year. And then that was the only mile-and-a-half race before the whole COVID thing hit. So I wanted to look at that without that race in there. And Denny and Harvick each have 3 wins, 7 and 8 top 10s, or 7 and 8 top 5s, a whole bunch of laps led, 400 plus for both of them. So those are my 2 dominators. How do you feel this is going to play out?
Yeah, so I think Hamlin's definitely one of my top dominators here. I think it was interesting that all the years that it's been the last race for the championship, and then he wins last year when it's not, and he's been in that last 4 few years now. But I just found that funny. But he's definitely, I think he leads early in this race, and I think he can hold on to it for quite a while. So he's probably my top dominator. I do think a lot of these guys who are in the mid-teens can dominate this race, and it just gives them some extra upside that they have a little built-in place differential. And my favorite play of the week, I think we might be a little bit off on this, is Kyle Larson. I told you early before the year started that I was going to be on him a lot, and I like that he's priced up to 10-7. I hope that keeps some people off of him. He's starting 17th. This has been his track, 2nd, 7th, 5th, in 3 of his last 4 here. He rides that outside wall, and he just finds his way around here. 2nd, 3rd, and 5th, in 3 of his last 5. I think starting 17th, he has a little bit of that place differential. He can lead later in this race, whereas Hamlin will probably lead early on. He can get up there and take the dominator points away from him, maybe in the second stage or something, I would think. And in this Hendrick car, I think he's in better equipment. I mentioned that in my article. I think he's going to have a massive year. 10-7 seems a little steep for him, but he's definitely priced in for track history, and I'll be jumping on him. The rest of them up top, next would be Chase and Truex. Chase was right with Hamlin last year. I think
Yep.
Hamlin passed him late in this race to win last year. Um, Took back the lead from him. So Chase is good here. He can definitely dominate starting 11th. And then Truex has always been pretty good here. He had a couple of things of bad luck when this was the last race of the year for the championship, a couple years, but I think he would be my next dominator. So those are the four up there. The top two are definitely Hamlin and Larson for me.
That's interesting. Like I have Harvick and Hamlin. I think I was kind of looking at it this morning in terms of how lineups are going to play out. I built a few on DraftKings. It's very tough to get. Like if you're looking at those top, let's say top three, the guys that are in the 11K range, you're not going to be able to get two of those unless you completely punt a few plays. And we'll talk about these value plays in a bit here, but kind of looking at this 60, let's just say sub 7K range, there's probably only like three drivers, and then even going below 6K, I'm not even really venturing down there. We've got a lot of these guys starting, like we got Priest, McDowell, Busher, Cole Custer, Ricky Stenhouse. They're all starting top 15, sub 7K drivers. None of those guys really do I see outside of maybe Busher on an upside whim as a top 10. That's really maybe Stenhouse, but he's only got one top 15 here in his last 9 races. I just don't see anything from those guys. And then I don't really want to start touching the guys in the 5K range a whole bunch. So I kind of see things playing out. Either people are going to grab one of Busch, Truex, or Elliott at the top. They're probably going to grab one of Hamlin and Harvick, kind of pair those two together. And then I think you can really make a nice lineup work together. Or what I really liked so far, and I think this is going to be probably the chalkiest build, is like Denny Hamlin and Harvick, being that they're only 10, 1, and 96. They're number 1 and 5 in my model right now, and they are 1 and 2 in odds to win the race. So I think that's going to be the way it's going to go. They've dominated the track history. So what you mentioned with Kyle Larson, I absolutely love. If you're building GPP, I think Truex, Elliott, Harvick, Hamlin, those four drivers for sure are going to be higher owned than Kyle Larson. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think I'm kind of in the right ballpark there?
Yeah, I hope that the track history and just kind of some of the talk around Larson doesn't jump him up. But I would surely think at this price that Chase and Truex and even Blaney
Yeah.
and then definitely Harvick and Hamlin would be higher than him. So I'm hoping
Yep.
sub 15-20% on Larson is what I'm hoping.
If that's the case, I am 100% on board. Like you said, he finished, I believe that was 15, 16, and 17. He finished fifth, second, and third, very close to winning those races. He could have won. I forget which one of those races it was where if he would have pushed, he could have won that race, but he let the champion. I think that was Truex's year. Him and Truex were battling near the end, and it looked like he probably could have went, but he kind of let the guys that were still in the final four battle it out. So I think he could have had a win there. And then he just, like you said, he rides that wall. This is a track where there are like 3 or 4 different lanes. We're going to see a lot of 3 wide going in these corners and
Yeah.
stuff. It's awesome racing, absolutely awesome. And Larson loves hanging on that outside wall. It can be risky because obviously we've seen he got 40th. I believe that was that the first race last year? Maybe
I
not.
think
Maybe
it
that
was
was
a
no, that
couple
was
years ago.
yeah, the year before where he was pretty much in the top 10 the whole entire race, top 5 even pushing top 5, and he just scraped that wall and it took a tire down like the last 15 to 20 laps. So, but if he's going to be 15% owned or less, I think that is huge upside starting 17th for him who just he's in good equipment and he should do really good at this track like he has in the past. So, I really love that play in the top tier. I think that's going to be um, I do think it's going to be low because you can get Harvick and Hamlin, who are very my top two dominators, obviously Hamlin number one, but you can get them cheaper. Then you can get Larson, who's coming back after missing a year. Some people still don't like him, but I really love that play. Going down into the mid range, what are your thoughts? I think like in terms of ownership, you're going to see a lot of ownership on Matty D today. Even on DraftKings at 8,800, he's starting 37th. He's finished 14th and 20th in his last two races here. The equipment's good there in the 21 Ford for the Wood brothers. On FanDuel, I think you have to lock him in at 7,200. That's just a steal. He's like in the Chase Briscoe, Bubba. He's cheaper than Bubba Wallace, starting 19th, and he's starting 30. Matty D's starting 37th. So kind of in that mid range. Where do you think the chalk's going to fall, or at least who are your favorite plays?
Well, my favorite play is I think who is going to be the highest on in that range, and it's Reddick. I feel like just Reddick finishing fourth here, 2 wins in Xfinity. I think people are definitely going to flock to him, starting 35th, and I'll be right there with them. 8,500 is fine. They priced him up a little bit because of the starting position. It feels like so. I'll be right there with him. But yeah, Matty D, 37th is a very similar play. I think I don't know. It's kind of hard if you want two dominators to pair these two guys together. Um, Originally, when I was going through it, I was thinking maybe you just play one to fade a little bit of the chalk per lineup, one per lineup, and get away from a chalk build. But the more I play with it, if you want two dominators, I don't think you can get Reddick and DiBenedetto without really punting those last couple. Byron should probably be similar, I would think, in ownership to DiBenedetto, starting 31st. He would be third out of that ranking for me. Those are definitely my top three, though, right there. Just they provide such great floor and upside. We saw Reddick have top 5 upside here, and he loves this place. I mean, he won 2 championships in Xfinity when he wasn't really, I don't think he was the best car in those years in Xfinity, and won that final race here at Homestead to win it.
For sure. Yeah, this place differential here. I was asked about Chastain and Briscoe before. I mean, they're down in my rankings. That's just simply because of they don't have the data that fills into my model to give you that overall ranking. So I've been asked that a few times. I do like them both, and just kind of I went back and looked at last year in the Xfinity Series for both Chastain and Briscoe, and just kind of their performances on the mile and a half. I know it's a different car, but I just kind of wanted to see because they're both coming into the Cup Series in good equipment, the 14 and the 42. I would say the 14 is probably a little bit better equipment with Stuart Haas there. So I lean a little bit Briscoe over Chastain, but both have elite place differential upside. I just lean Briscoe a little bit more. But when you look at their Xfinity performances last year, Briscoe had the better finish to the season. He was 24th at Texas, so that wasn't great, but he won at Kansas the week before that. He had won at Las Vegas in the playoffs, 11th at Darlington. But when you look at Chastain, he kind of struggled down the stretch at the mile and a half. He was 16th at Texas. He was 12th at Kansas. He was 16th at Vegas. And at Darlington, okay, that's when he was doing good earlier in the season because he was second there. But Briscoe had more wins. He's in a little bit better equipment. So if you're deciding between those two, I'm definitely leaning Briscoe. But both are going to carry ownership just because if you're going with those top guys, you really do need to dig down into the 7K range and even below that to get some guys. I think Eric Jones may become a little bit lower owned. I wish he was starting outside the top 20, but I can see a 15th place finish kind of from him. That's kind of borderline what you're looking for from him here. He's got a third, but again, that's back. I think he was in the 20 car and that race, so it's going to be better equipment that I'm not expecting, much better than a 15th place finish from him. He is a little bit higher in the rankings, but again, you gotta keep in mind with the rankings on the sheet when you have drivers that change teams that a lot of the data from a lot of these drivers that's pushing that overall ranking is from a different car, different equipment. So just the ranking generally pushes me into a place where okay, now I want to look more. I'm not just saying okay, this guy's first in my model, I'm locking him in. I want to dig a little bit more into it. Especially when you start scrolling down the list here and looking at these guys. Another question that I wanted to go over today that someone had asked is the fantasy matrix and how we use it. There's a lot of people that don't use it just because they maybe don't understand it. So that's one thing I just want to touch on here quickly. I'm going to flip over to the matrix tab. So how I use it, I'm going to ask you in a second here, Dane. But what I'm doing here is you got the list of drivers. I got total number of laps up top. You've got the starting position for every driver. And then what you see here in this whole matrix is, let's just pull Kyle Busch, for instance. He's at the top. So it's every finishing position for every single driver in the field and how many points they would get. DraftKings points. This is a DraftKings matrix. FanDuel one is coming. So, like for Kyle Busch, if he wins, doesn't lead any laps, doesn't get any fast laps, he wins, he'll get 68 points. If Martin Truex wins, doesn't have any fast laps, doesn't have any laps led, he's going to get 53 points. So that right there tells you that Kyle Busch has more upside than Truex if neither leads any laps or has any fast laps. So that's one way I use it. If you make a copy of the sheet, you can also come in here and you can fill these in. So like Denny Hamlin, for instance, I'm going to put him at 100 laps led. And generally, a driver is only going to get about 50, 60% tops fast laps towards what their laps led were. So I'm going to throw 60 in there. And we're going to see if Denny Hamlin leads 100 laps, gets 60 fast laps, wins the race, he's going to get 97 DK points. So that's how I use that there when I'm editing. You can go in and just kind of put in these 267 laps if you want. But generally, this is just comparing driver to driver. It's really helpful when you start getting down into the value range. Let's just go Briscoe, and we had a question about Bubba Wallace. So let's just go Briscoe and Bubba Wallace. They're side by side. Briscoe starts 30th, Wallace starts 19th. I think they're both kind of like, let's say 20th place drivers. Their performance if they finish 20th. I don't see either of them leading a lap. I don't see either of those drivers having any fast laps. So we're just going to look at the raw points here from 20th position. If they were both to finish 20th, you got Briscoe getting 33 DK points. You got Bubba only $200 less, but he's only getting 22 DK points. That's how I'm using the matrix, is comparing drivers in the exact same price range who maybe have the exact same upside in terms of finishing position, but then I want to calculate their upside versus each other in terms of DraftKings points. How do you use the matrix?
Yeah, I use it the exact same way, and I'll compare one of my favorite plays of the week right in that range as well is Austin Dillon.
Yes.
Before I get into the matrix, I think we had some success last year pairing Dillon and Reddick together. When Austin Dillon won, Reddick was right up there with him. It was like when they hit as a team, they really hit at certain tracks. Austin has been very good here, and Reddick was good, really good here last year. So I really like that pairing. And if you compare on the matrix, Austin Dillon to say Ross Chastain right there, $300 difference. Chastain starting 32nd, Austin starting 22nd. What I see for Austin's upside is definitely top 10. So say he finishes 10th, that's 46 points for him without leading any laps or fastest laps. Ross Chastain, if I think his upside, max upside would be 15th, and I really don't see that. I would see closer to 20th. So you're looking around, if you're 17th, 18th, that's around 40 points. So I feel like their upside is 5 points difference. So I lean Austin Dillon in that scenario. That's how I use it.
That's a good one. That's an excellent one. We actually had a question about Austin Dillon, and he's one of my core plays today, even though he is starting 22nd. And that's a great way to compare them. There's 10 places difference in starting. So you'd think, well, Chastain's only $300 cheaper. He has more upside. But that's when exactly what you said, you kind of have to figure out in your head what you think each driver's finishing position upside is and what their floor is. That's kind of what I do, is kind of make a floor. You take wrecks, you take mechanical failures, you take all that variance out of there and just say, okay, I think Austin Dillon can finish 15th to 20th, like you said. That gives you a range of 25 to 35 fantasy points. And what was your floor and upside for Chastain there again? You said 20th was kind of his.
I think his max upside is 15th, 16th, and his floor would be probably 25th, but
right.
I would think somewhere right around 20th is where I would project him to finish.
Yep. No, I like that. And with him being a rookie and less experienced than Dillon, again, that takes that range of 5 spots like we talked about with Austin Dillon finishing 15th to 20th. We're expanding that for Ross Chastain because he's a rookie, obviously. So Dane feels his upside is 15th. I'm right there with you on him. So we'll just say both of us feel his upside is 15th, which is 45 points. That's terrific. But again, his downside is going to be a little bit less, kind of in that 25th range. So that's what we're looking at there for sure. Any other plays kind of in this lower end that you're looking at?
Yeah, well, just one more before we drop down to the very value right there. Almirola has been good here, just like his teammate Harvick. That team seems to be pretty good here, so you could pair him with Harvick and do a team stack that way as well. So he's just another guy I would mix in. I like Dillon more, though, for sure in that range.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Cross the 7,000 mark, it does get a little tougher. There's not a ton of guys down there that I like. You mentioned that at the top. But there are a couple, and I think there's a couple that will go a little overlooked. I think a lot of people are going to flock down here to like a Ryan Newman or Suarez. And I like Suarez a lot. I like Newman a decent amount as well. So both of those would be probably the top two. But as a pivot, I think Anthony Alfredo is going to be 5% or less starting 27th. I think we just need to throw out these first two races for a lot of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking the equipment he's in, he is around a 20th place car. I think he could get that out of it. And for 5,500, 27th starting spot, 7 ahead place differential is not going to kill you. You would like around a teen finish, but I would definitely take that. And maybe that's a guy we could compare with Suarez when I think Alfredo is going to be a 1/6 or something of his ownership.
Well, yeah, a 20th place finish upside, 30 points there. Well, 30 points, he's 5.5. I mean, that's 5.5x. If we can get 5x plus from these guys kind of down in this bottom range, I think that's awesome. So, I mean, with him, to get just that 5x, we're only looking for about a 27th, 28th finish out of Alfredo, right where he started. He started in 27th. Oh, no, that's only 15 points. So he needs about a 22nd to 23rd place finish, and I think that's totally doable. So, and I agree with you. I think he's going to be a lot lower owned. I think a lot of people will flock like as low as I've gone really so far. I like Newman, not a ton of upside like for GPP. It's not really there. I'm only seeing maybe like 5x gives him like he needs an 18th place finish, so he needs to gain 5 spots. I don't see a whole lot. I see maybe a 15th out of Newman, but that's really it. So going down to Alfredo at maybe a half or 60% less of the ownership, starting 27th, and I think definitely a 20th to 23rd place finish is doable, and it's not going to kill you, but it's going to do is allow you to go up and get stack some of these top guys because I think stars and scrubs is definitely going to be the way to go here. Corey Lejoy was borderline for me. 25th, finishing where he starts is only 17 points. We're really looking for like a 21st, and I think a 20th to 25th again for him is something that is definitely doable. There's a lot more variance to it. It's not going to happen consistently by any means, but he does have that upside. So he's maybe one that I would look at. Below that, I'm not really going anywhere below Corey Lejoy. I do like Justin Haley, but not starting 20th.
What is your take on Suarez? I am really thinking that he's going to be very popular.
You think he's going to be popular?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just in that 99 car, he's got 3 of his last 4 finishes here outside the top 30, but he does have the best odds of anyone kind of down. He's got the same odds as Chris Buescher in the 17 car, but it gives you what do we got here? 9 more place differential points. So being that there isn't very many low end guys here, I can kind of see people going to him and Newman. Like I guess I could see those two being probably the highest 2 owned. If you look under, well, I think Eric Jones does, but say below Eric Jones at 6,900, those two, Newman and Suarez, could definitely be the 2 highest owned starting 21st and 23rd.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely in better equipment this year than he was last year. But those last 3 finishes before that, where he was 34th, 30th, and 14th, was all in Stewart-Haas equipment. He's in Custer's car in those 3 races, and he didn't do very great. I think if you look at the matrix and compare him to Alfredo, they are very similar as far as what I think their upsides are. I think Suarez is around 15th and Alfredo's around that 18 to 20 at the very high end, which is going to be similar.
It
But
is.
for as much less ownership as I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think Alfredo is going to be much, much less owned. And for that, if similar upside, I'll definitely take Alfredo in that.
No, I love your explanation there. You've got me on Alfredo over Suarez. You might even have me on Alfredo over Newman here, just with that 4 extra place differential upside that he has, and the fact that what did he do in his first 2 races at Daytona Road? And let's just go have a look here. I don't think he crashed in both, did he not? I
I
believe.
think so, but I think he was running pretty well in the road course.
Yeah, he's actually got okay, 27th average finish of 27th so far. So I mean, it hasn't been terrible. I think he just crashed in one of them. So, but his DK points were pretty high in those. But again, we throw those out the window simply because the tracks, the road course, and super speedway is a completely different story than these mile and a halves. This is what we're going to see a lot of. This is where we can really build a solid strategy and start tracking things is with these because I think we have with 7 road courses this year. I know it changed a little bit because we lost. Did we lose Atlanta this year? I believe a race in Atlanta, so we lost one there. But I think we've got about 15, 16, something like that, intermediate tracks. Maybe even a few more than that. But this is kind of the core of our strategies and stuff. So don't go back and look at Daytona Road Course how guys did or how any kind of form from the start of the year. Um, just simply because it's completely different style of racing. Both of those first 2 races were different from each other, and both of those are completely different than what we're seeing this week. So that's one thing to keep in mind. We went over the matrix. We went over some of our top plays. If you guys got any drivers that you're wondering about, any driver A versus driver B questions that you're wondering about, fire them off here. We got about 5 more minutes or so. We're going to take off and go start building some lineups here. I got to check out of this hotel, go get some more coffee. Other than that, Dane, I guess if we had to do a one and done, let's just say we theoretically we did a one and done. We didn't. But if I was doing one this week, and if you guys are doing one, NASCAR is a little bit different, just simply because you're really looking at the 26 races in the regular season. Most one and dones will then reset going into the playoffs, but that only gives you 26 drivers to choose. And I would say it's a lot easier now because there's more drivers that are, well, we've seen it the first 2 weeks with wins out of 2 guys. And that's one thing I want to get. I'm just going to totally bypass that one and done question here and lead right into this. How crazy is it that we got the winners that we did in the first 2 weeks? That how much pressure does that put on everybody else that is usually around that 16th place spot, for the playoff bubble, where really it comes down to points at the end of the season? Well, now you've got 2 drivers that don't normally win a lot of races. They are now pushing and making it even more stressful for these guys that are going to be trying to get into the playoffs. How much impact do you think that has going forward in the year?
Yeah, I think it has a big impact on the mid-range guys like DiBenedetto, Reddick, Austin Dillon, all guys like that. I mean, if
Byron.
they have a chance to win a race, I feel like they're gonna be more aggressive. We
Mm,
saw last year Reddick was the race that Austin Dillon won. He and Reddick were near the front. They were obviously teammates, but you could almost kind of tell that Reddick was playing it safe for a good finish. And then he ends up not making the playoffs. But this year, he's not going to be able to do that. I don't care how well he runs through these races. He's not going to be in a position, I don't think, to get in on points. And I think he's going to need a win. So if he gets the opportunity and gets up there in the top 5 near the end, he's going to be very, very aggressive. And I think a lot of these guys are going to be like that.
yeah, I agree. I think it's going to make the season absolutely awesome. Like you said,
Yeah.
when it comes to these drivers that we're looking at, who are going to have these chances to win when we come to, say, a road course or a super speedway, or even in race when
Or dirt.
you see a guy close to the end. It's going to be absolutely crazy restarts. I'm super pumped for it. We got another question here. Austin asks, yesterday we seen everyone pay up for high place differential, and they ended up getting fast laps and laps led out of that as well from those guys. Do you think we'll see a similar strategy build today? I personally think it's a touch different just because we had like Tyler Reddick starting at the back. We had a lot of those really good drivers starting way back. Those were obviously the best cars. The difference between the top cars in Xfinity, the gap between the top cars and some of those cars that were starting up front is a lot bigger in Xfinity. Today, we've got like Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick starting pretty close up front, Joey Logano. I think we're going to see a lot of laps led coming from at least Hamlin and Harvick. But I don't think Kyle Busch is going to come from 24th and lead, a sizable amount, anything more than like 5 to 10 laps if possible. I don't see Larson leading a ton of laps in there either. Maybe Elliott and Truex, but they're starting 9th and 11th, so you're not getting a ton of place differential out of those guys. So I think the build is going to be a little bit different simply because your major place differential today is coming from guys like the 9K, mid 8K range in Reddick, DeBenedetto, and Byron, going down to Chastain and Briscoe. Down into the lower ranges, we've got Newman, Suarez, Alfredo that we mentioned. So I think it's going to be a little bit different. I don't think we're going to see those big place differential guys, the same as yesterday, also get a ton of fast laps led, just because it's a different set of cars slash drivers in terms of talent and equipment that is in those deep cars back in the field, whereas the dominators that we're looking at for the most part are coming from the top 5 today. Your thoughts on that?
I agree completely.
Yeah.
I see Steve has a question here if there's any guys that were for sure fading. If I was building a 20 max, first thing I would do is X out everyone Justin Haley and below 5,300. And then I would go in and I would be Xing out these value guys who are starting so far up front, like McDowell, Priest, Custer, even maybe. He's in pretty good equipment. You could keep him in, but he would be like a one lineup out of 20 guy for me. Stenhouse, I think it would be a complete fade for me. Bell is probably a fade for me. Even though now he's racing a little looser, he's going to be very aggressive because he has nothing to lose. So
yeah, but starting third, he would need like 50 to
yeah,
100 laps led at his price, even still at 7,600
yeah,
and a
yeah,
top 5. So I'm
yeah.
with you there.
Right. Yep. Those are the guys that I would X out. The rest of them you can kind of mix and match, I think, if you're building that many. But I would obviously prioritize people, not just spread out completely even.
Yeah, and I highlighted them here as Dane went over those guys. I kind of highlighted them on the sheet here for the video. A couple other guys that I'm personally fading. I'm staying away from Kurt Busch. He hasn't had anything better than the 8th place finish here in his last 10 races, and he's averaging about a what is it here? Yeah, over the last 2 races, 16.6 average finish over the last 10. Starting 5th, he would need like a miracle to get in the top lineups, in my opinion. So he's one that I would fade. I just highlighted him there. But I'm with you on the Justin Haley and down, the Priest, McDowell, Busher, Stenhouse, the guys that are kind of starting. Even Custer for me is a fade. Starting, those guys starting top 15 that I don't see finishing 15th at all, just because of the quality. A lot would have to go right for those guys to kind of finish in those top lineups. But that's pretty much the only guys that I'm at this point of my. I haven't started my 20 max yet. I'm going to rifle that in when we're done the video here. But so far, those are the only guys that I'm eliminating from my player pool right off the bat. I'm going to be lower owned on like Kozlowski at the top. I'm going to be a little bit underweight on Blaney. And this is just because I'm going to have Larson, Elliott, Truex, Harvick, and Hammond. I think Kyle Busch is going to be. I'm not sold yet on what I think his ownership is going to be because, one, he's the most expensive driver, and everyone has a bad taste in their mouth from last year, including myself. He didn't win. He didn't look himself. The car, he didn't look as fast. Even when he started up front, when he had place differential, he just was terrible all year to his standards anyway. So starting 24th, though, there's a lot of place differential upside there, but I think the ownership will be pushed down just because of what we already talked about with Truex, Elliott, Larson, Hamlin, and Harvick being so low owned. So I like that for a GPP play for sure. But Casey's got a question here. I'm not completely understanding. Maybe just throw in what that means, just salary ranges for lineups. I know Dane the other day, or actually Kenny was mentioning in RotoPro's chat with his, I believe that was his NBA build. He just kind of said, like, I'm using in my 20 max, like my lineups are going to have like one 10K driver, two 8K drivers, one 7K driver. Is that what you're kind of looking for here in terms of salary ranges for lineups? Because if so, I built this morning my lineup, and I really like the build with Hamlin and Harvick right at the top, just simply because it leaves you a lot of salary. Now, I think a lot of people are going to go this route because you get 2 dominators, but maybe not, because we just coming off 2 races where we concentrated heavy on place differential. So that's still fresh in a lot of people's minds. So maybe this is the contrarian way to go. Hamlin, I think, is definitely going to be in there, but those 2. So generally, I'm looking at, if you're going with one in the 11K range, you're pretty much going to have to dip probably 2 or 3 at least in that 7K range. You're probably going to have to skip over the 8 and 9K range for the most part, unless you're going down and punting like 2 of Suarez, Alfredo, Lejoy, Newman. If you're getting 2 of those guys, you maybe be able to get 2 guys in the 10K and up range together comfortably. But generally, personally, I'm looking at either 1 11K, one kind of in that mid 8K, low 9K range, and then just going down into the 7,400 and below range to fill everything out, or 2 in the 10/9K range, and then a little bit more balance. So there's really multiple builds that I see here happening today, and I'm not 100% sure where the chalk 2, 3 core drivers are going to end up outside of Hamlin. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think you got to get 2 guys up in that top range, and it's going to, even if you're chalky, you're just going to have to get a little different elsewhere. I think I'm going back and forth on if people are going to play the Benedetto and Reddick, but I've not played around with builds enough yet to see how easy that is with jamming in. I don't think you can get 2 dominators.
No, it's going to be pretty tough. Unless Harvick and Hammond absolutely dominate, that's the only way I see really the double, a very comfortable, optimal lineup with 2 dominators for me anyway is Hamlin, Harvick. And let's say Hamlin leads the early part of the race, gets 110, 120 laps led somewhere in there. I think Harvick can swoop in and maybe get like 60, 70 down the stretch, and they kind of clean up on the lap sled, maybe like 70, 80% of the lap sled. I think that's the only way that really works out. And if that doesn't, and Hamlin maybe leads the majority of the laps, Harvick's not going to be in the optimal lineup, in my opinion. It's going to be more Blaney, Larson, Kyle Busch type thing with some of that, or Byron de Benedetto, Reddick with that place differential in there as well. If we don't see a too heavy dominator, like 70, 80% of the laps led in terms of that. So next question here, Austin asked, last question. Are we going to end up with 15 cars in the lead lap again? Is that compared to previous races, Austin? Or is that compared to like yesterday? I didn't get to see the end to see how many cars were on the lead lap, but generally I don't see a ton of crashes here. And if you're comparing to the first 2 races of the year, I'm not comparing it to those whatsoever, just because you were talking road course and super speedway versus an intermediate. For me, I see more than 15 cars in the lead lap at the end for sure. I don't see like a wreck fest here at this track. It's really wide, so they're not going to get into trouble going 3 wide into corners or anything like that. It's easier to pass just simply because the track is so wide. You can go 3 wide quite comfortably. You'll have guys riding the top, middle, bottom, which is nice coming down to the end, because if there's one dominant car out there, it gives the guys behind him a lot of opportunities to go and get some clean air on different parts of the track and try and make up time. So if a guy's riding the top, he'll maybe try and go and ride the bottom, or vice versa, to try and make up time. So that's one reason why I really like this track, and I thought it was a really good championship track. I really love Phoenix anyway, but so overall, I don't think we're going to see a wreckfest. I think we're going to see a pretty tame race here, some green flag runs. Knock on wood. With that said, now there's going to be a wreck on the first lap. Now that I said that, but yeah. One more question here, and then we're going to take off. Steve asked, tires played a huge role yesterday. Does someone like Anthony Alfredo got to worry about how many tires he has available, or do all these teams have unlimited tires today? Dane, I'll leave that to you. I'm almost 100% all teams have the same amount of tires.
Yeah.
6 sets, I think, today.
Something that we don't have to worry about when we get to Cup, really. All these teams should have the same amount of tires. I know what you're talking about in trucks and Xfinity even. You do see that sometimes where some teams have less tires just because they can't afford the max. But when you get to this point, he should definitely not have to worry about that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everyone for tuning in. We had some good viewers, lots of questions today. We went over everything. We're going to try and do this next week for a live show. I'm going to have to find some internet somewhere. I don't know if I'll come back to the city, if I'll go to a friend's house. I don't know. I'll try and make this work for you guys, because I absolutely love doing this on Sunday mornings before building my lineups. It helps me out too. I really hope it helps you guys. So again, make sure to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and you'll get notifications when new shows come out. Also, make sure to go over to rotopros.com and subscribe to our channel over there. We do a bunch of shows during the week for NBA, NHL. Me and Dane do a PGA preview show on Mondays. We didn't this last week, but I got a Tuesday one in. So we got a lot of shows coming, a lot of good content for everyone. Thanks for watching. Comment with your favorite driver below, and let's go get some green screens today, everyone. Good luck out there.
Good luck.